Mr. Leggett.
Mr. Chair, committee, visitors, my name is Chauncey Leggett. I'm the owner and operator of Lake Valley Well Company in Tarboro. I'm a certified Class A well driller. We do mud rotary, which is basically eastern part of the state. We do open and rock work, which is from Raleigh here to the western part of the state. I'm a past president of the North Carolina Groundwater Association. I'm a current director of the National Groundwater Association. I participate in the voluntary certification program that the National provides. I'm a certified well driller, pump installer, and vertical closed loop driller. I also am a commissioner that sits on the commission of the Well Contractor Certification Commission. Now, I don't tell you that to brag about it. I tell you that I've been a lifelong learner of what we do and what it takes to try to be a good well driller. Because in our business, you don't get a second chance sometime. Listen to John and Matthew and Todd about interacting the aquifers. Once you do it, you can't fix it. Look at Cherry Point down in Havelock. What kind of problems have we had down there? Who's going to fix that? How about the Cape Fear River? It's gone all the way down to Wilmington now and made a right-hand turn and going into South Carolina. Who's going to fix that? We don't get second chances in this business. You need a professional to do this type of work. Unfortunately, like other trades, we're going to be over 100,000 short well drillers in 2 years. We welcome anybody that wants to get into this business. And any of us will be glad to work with them to help them learn the trade, to be certified, to do the work we need to do that the citizens of this state expect and demand. You can live without food 1 to 2 months. You might make it 3 days without water. You go and drill a well on a farm, on a rural road. Next door is a big subdivision. Electrical contractor made some exemptions, so they sent his buddy over there to wire the house. The house gets burnt down. Luckily, the family was gone. The employee of a farmer sends his employee out there to drill a well beside that road and contaminates every well in that subdivision. Who's going to fix it? We pull out, what, 53 million gallons? No, 153 million gallons a day for agricultural use. Is the biggest user of fresh water, and we welcome it. We need it.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Leggett. Your time has expired. Thank you so much for your
I'll be glad to take any questions after the meeting.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Senator Jackson, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Audience, those that participated, Matthew, Todd, John, Chauncey, I believe, is that correct? I might mispronounced it. I apologize if I did, Mr. Leggett. I appreciate your concerns, but I don't know that we've had anything to do with Cherry Point or PFAS. I don't know that that was well drillers' intention. You know, in all honesty, it sounds like this is protectism to me, is where y'all are coming from on this. I mean, I think we all take our water seriously because we have to have the right irrigation, whether it's pond water or wells, to make sure that we grow our crops. I am a little offended that you're sort of in some ways insulting our farm employee associates and, you know, calling them farm hands, farm workers. And when most of these folks that would be doing this type of work are running far more expensive equipment than y'all have as well drillers. And I know how expensive well driller rigs are. I'm familiar with that. So, you know, I don't mind working with you on this language, but I would recommend we keep it in here.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Now, committee members, thanks for everybody that's participated. Now will be the time for committee members to discuss any particular sections of the bill that they would like to pose questions to Senator Jackson or others. So the floor is open now for committee discussion. Representative Gillespie.
Question for the bill sponsor.
Yes, sir.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could provide some clarification on this, and I will make sure that I understand it. Under current law, a farm that is owned by, we'll just pick on Carl Gillespie, owned by Carl Gillespie, I can go out and I can drill a well that I'll be utilizing for irrigation on my farm currently.
As my understanding, that is correct, sir.
But if I were to change that, make that a simple change to Carl Gillespie LLC, decide to change the farm from an individual name and assuming an LLC to provide some protection, then I'll be able to do that.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Follow up? Other questions from the committee? Representative Brody and then Representative Ager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, Senator Jackson, is there a difference between an irrigation well and a well that's for public consumption?
Senator Jackson.
I think it depends, not to my knowledge, but it depends on the strainers. It depends on if you're going to run it through a sand filter system of some sort with the carbon and all that goes, that would make it different. But now, not all wells are built for human consumption, but I don't know of many that aren't.
Follow up?
Follow up. Okay, in that line then, if you're going to do a well for irrigation, do you still get the same verifications from the county, permitting county, that you would get if you were going to do a public consumption well?
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Brody, for that question. That's really a two-folded or maybe more answer. One, most of your irrigation wells are not drilled for human consumption. However, thanks to our U.S. federal government and the FSMA program, which is Food Safety Modernization Act, that came in place several years ago, these wells have to be tested, depending on how large they are and how much you're irrigating out of them, they have to be tested on a 90-day cycle. Your homeowner's well is rarely tested. Our labor camp water is tested annually before we can get our visas to bring our workers across the border. And actually some of these irrigation wells are tested far more than your municipality wells and wells that are actually designed and drilled for human consumption.
Follow up?
Mr. Chairman, give me a minute. I got to think of, there is a follow-up in this brain here, but I haven't.
Okay, I'll give you one more follow-up after you get through thinking.
Thank you.
While Representative Brody is thinking, Representative Ager, I already had you on my list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, so the first one I had was just on the Muscadine grape juice, and I think that, I think we passed that in the House, but when we passed it in the House, we had a buyback provision in there. Is that still in the bill, or has that been pulled out? I just wanted to see if that was still there.
I think it's been pulled out because we didn't mandate it. Y'all mandated it, and we got so much pushback on that from the other commodity associations. We just made it encouraged.
Okay.
Staff, would you address that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Representative Eggers, since there's no requirement to buy the Muscadine grape juice, it's just an encouragement, there's no buyback provision because there's no requirement to buy it in the first place.
That makes sense. I appreciate it. And
Follow up
quickly. I just wanted to go on to section 11.1 on the riparian buffer and the value of timber. As we limit that to the value of timber that's pulled off the riparian buffer, we're limiting the the fine that you can get on that. I mean, just from a legal perspective, it seems like if you had some unscrupulous, logger out there, they could just do that until they got caught, and then it doesn't really cost them anything. And tell me why I'm wrong on that one, I guess.
Senator Jackson.
This was brought to us from the Department of Ag, and I assume they would still be fined the value of that timber. It's not that it doesn't cost them something. They would be charged with something.
They could just still follow up, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chair, sorry. They could still, but they would still be able to sell that timber, and then just that money would go to the state.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
So there is a fine involved, but it can't be.
Right, but it doesn't really cost them anything.
I guess that depends on how you look at it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Staff is in agreement with what Senator Jackson said. Representative Brown.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank our speakers for coming out and addressing their concerns. Thank you for that. Also, Senator Jackson, is it a way that you can work with our speakers, just to hear them out? That's our job, is to serve, and just do a follow-up with us. Thank you.
Representative Majid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions.
You can ask a series of questions.
Thank you, sir. On page 12 and 13 of the document, under section, let me see. On page 12, going down
Here's a page 12.
to 42, line 42. It says, food services, laboratory, schools shall strive to ensure that 100% Muscadine grape juice is made available to students, on and on. And goes over here on page 13, and it says, the trustees, on page 13, line 1 on page 13. The trustees of each institution shall constitute the local administrative board of such institutions, and we're talking about laboratory schools. That's the classification. We're talking about laboratory schools of each institution with such powers and duties as are provided in the chapter and as are delegated to it by the State Board of Community Colleges. Now, my question is, we have laboratory schools in the UNC system. Are we talking about two different systems? If so, that laboratory schools, then the UNC school should be included in that. So can you give me a little definition on that?
Thank you for the question, but I can't answer that one, but I would call on staff to answer that, and I'm sure they can.
Mr. Saunders, do you understand the question from Representative Majid?
I think so, Mr. Chairman. So,
Okey-doke.
Representative Majid, so section 5A is referring to the local boards, 5B is referring to the charter schools, 5C is the regional schools, and 5D is the laboratory schools operated by UNC system. And then section 5E, 5E, so that's, wait a second. Yeah, so 5E is the laboratory schools, 5F is actually the community college system separately, and then 5G is the UNC system. So basically all the public schools, the community colleges, and the UNC system are encouraged to make Muscadine grape juice available by this section, but there's no requirement on any of them. But it's not, the systems are not being changed at all. It's just adding to the duties of those systems to strive to make the Muscadine grape juice available.
Well, please, for my help for edification here. So what I would say in line 3 on page 13, it says by the State Board of Community Colleges. So,
Representative, I think that's because it's following up on section 5.F, which is dealing with
which line is
community
that?
college.
Which line is that?
Well, on page 12, line 49, it begins.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually, when it says community college, because that's the community college section in this bill.
Okay. So you saying other areas apply to the UNC system?
Correct.
Was-
Yes, sir. For the laboratory schools under Section 5E, they're all operated by the UNC system.
Okay.
Section 5F is a different section that's amending the community college statute. So
Okay.
that's totally separate.
Okay, thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir.
Okay,
Representative Majid, you have different entities that the General Assembly is telling or suggesting that they do something, and you have to go to those particular statutes representing each of those entities to tell them what's in parens 15.
thank you for that clarification. Follow-up, sir?
Yes, sir, follow it.
Okay. On page 22, line 14, under digester general permit clarifications. It says on line 20, it says the collected gases shall be used as a renewable energy resource as quickly as feasible, but within 6 months of the collection of the gases. And during that period, the gas shall be flared rather than vented. Now, so my question is, is that in the old situation, those gas had to be collected and sent into the system for collection. Why flare it now? Was that wasn't a part of the old situation? And does flaring not does that not defeat the purpose? Or what are the circumstances for such actions that they be flared? Is that a common practice?
Well, I can't answer if it's a common practice on livestock farms, but I do know it's common practice in landfills, and we're talking about methane gas.
Yeah, we talking methane.
Representative, as this is my understanding, this is the worked out, agreed to language with DEQ and the stakeholders, and this is the language they recommended go in here.
Representative Majid, I might add this too. If you remember back in the session before, we passed legislation bringing these the digester type systems in compliance with the requirements from DEQ and so forth. And that bold print there, digester general permit clarification, there was some question about if you see the language that was struck out, including all associated, where you see associated has been stricken out, and it becomes more specific there so that it's clarified as to exactly what that is talking about relative to the appropriate equipment being used in these digester systems. There's nothing changed about the requirements when to flare or anything like that.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why I was asking that is because, I had the opportunity to visit down there east with you, and we saw this beautiful system set up and everything, and how it was funneled into the gas company, and I didn't see any flaring. Maybe it was a little burn off of whatever. I don't recall, but it seems like to me that flaring defeats the environmental situation that we initially are using these digesters so we can utilize that gas. And I don't know, it seems like that's so self-defeating for me, to open that up like that and not have them use that gas for a more practical purpose.
Yeah, it's calibrated very finely because it represents money, and the folks doing this, they don't want